Today, Chris C. and I talk about the creation of Chris C. Speaks. We look at the seeds planted and admire the great harvest that has grown. Use the hashtag JDO3 podcast and Chris C. Speaks to engage us in this dialogue. And now, part one of Filled to the Brim and Overflowing. All right, welcome to Pastor JDO3, the podcast. I'm excited about this experience today. I get to talk to some amazing people. I am blessed. One of the things I always say is I'm blessed to know some amazing people. They have made my life more fruitful. Some of the dialogues that I've had with these individuals have helped make me who I am and are helping me become who God has for me to be. And one of those young men is going to join me today, and that's that man, Chris Collins. What's the word, baby?
Listen, man, you just called me a young man. I am winning. We ain't got to do nothing else. We ain't got to do nothing else. We can press stop right now. You just called me a young man. With all this gray right here, we good. We ain't got to say nothing else.
Good. And gray is in.
It is. I ain't dying near a bit of it. Even though this gray on my temple is calling to me. Yes, I'm going to let it just be right there. What's up, man? How you doing?
Man, I am doing well and excited about this. I have been watching from afar, and bro, I'm impressed. I do remember when this journey first started. So let's just start there, because I'm telling you, I've been watching this momentum for a few years now, and it has been a great testament of faith, of perseverance, of hard work, of gifts and talents, and how they make room for you. So, bro, how did we get to Chris Speaks?
Man, how much time we got, right? Like, I think,
yeah. How did we get here?
So I will tell you that if we're being completely honest, Chris C. Speaks was like a seed for Chris C. Speaks was birthed in First Met, right? So with folks like, like when I first moved to Texas from Chicago, I hated everything about it. Like, I didn't want to be here. I was mad. I was here under circumstances that I didn't, they're all my fault, but I didn't want to be here, right? And then we had to go to church, and I was like, what? This church stuff is trash. Like, I really don't want to go to church, because we didn't really do that back in the shot.
Yeah.
But I was able to really get in and get to meet people, getting to meet folks like you, when you almost let me drown. You were trying to teach me how to swim. Like, I know we're going to take a little sidetrack, so y'all listen. This man was trying to teach me how to swim in a summer camp, right? He gives me all of like 4 minutes of lessons, like strict. For real, like 4 minutes might be too generous, right? So he's like, all right, you got it? He's like, you got it? And I'm like, cool. So, and listen, when he's teaching me how to swim, y'all, I'm going from like side to side on the pool. I'm not going lengthwise. I'm in the shallow end. So whenever I run out of breath, I just stand up. He ain't teach your boy how to tread water. So when he's like, if you got it, well, come on and swim toward me. So he swims not from one side to the other, but lengthwise to the deep end.
Yes, come on.
He's like, come on and swim. And me, not thinking I got it, I start swimming. Y'all, I get tired, and like I normally do, I go to stand up, because that's what I've been doing this whole time in this practice. Y'all, I couldn't, my feet ain't touched the bottom. I freaked out. And he's laughing.
Yeah, I thought
and he's
you were
like,
playing.
He thought I was joking. He's like, Chris, just stand up. Now, eventually, I realized that if I would have stood on my tippy toes, I'd have been just fine. But at the moment, my pride was hurt more than my lungs.
Yeah, you almost lost your life that day.
Listen, my life flashed before my eyes. I didn't think I was going to make it. But moments like that, right? Being able to build bonds and connections with folks like you, Reverend O'Berry, Pastor Blake, Mike D, Bridge, like all those folks, all those folks who really were able to really pour in. Arthur Washington, like folks who used to write me letters when I was in college and send me a check, like those men planted the seeds for Chris C. Speaks to blossom, right? They saw something special in me, and they put forth the effort to really nurture that talent and grow. And then they supported me along the way, right? In all the different ways they can. And so from there, having some great experiences in college and being able to reach and impact folks with this gift of speech, being able to do that is the thing that I love the most. We talk about that your gift will make room for you, that God's going to put something in you that's going to allow him to get the glory. I pray that every time that I speak, that it's a ministry for him, right? But, a lot of what I do now was birthed in the teen room when I was, learning how to build the foundation of my faith, learning what it meant to be a believer. A lot of that happened, right? Like a lot of it was birthed right then and there.
Well, let me ask you this. So it's Chris C. Speaks, but what you just said says that before Chris spoke, that someone spoke into you. Talk about that a little bit, because it's, sometimes we want to speak, we want to give what we have, and it's like, no, you haven't been poured into. So what is that process like for you?
So I think that's the dopest part, right? Is that, we've all seen that example of the cup, right? Yeah. If you're the cup, you can't be poured into until you pour it out and all that good stuff. All that's fine. It's a great example that you have to pour out of yourself so people can fill into you. But the cup has to get filled eventually somehow. Yes. And you have to be able to put yourself in a position to win, to learn, and to actually know what you're talking about. We live in a world where everybody has a microphone, and if you say things the right way, your voice can be amplified. Yeah. And I don't ever want to question anyone's voice. I think everyone deserves to have their voice heard. Our voice is our power. But when you use your voice, it's important that you use it accurately. Yeah. It's important that you have some research and some foundational truths behind that voice, and that you're not just regurgitating things you've heard in the silo of your social media or of your social stratosphere, right? So the great thing is that I was poured into by several different people with several different competing ideologies, right? Being able to hear folks like your pops preach is phenomenal. Also being able to hear folks like Derek Muhammad and kind of the things that he does, and the way that he teaches, being able to hear all different ideas and all different parts and points of view allows you to be better prepared to speak. And also, Johnny, real talk, man, I practice a lot, bro. Like, I spend a lot of time in front of a mirror making sure that what I say, that I'm hitting the points right. I spend a lot of time reading. I spend a lot of time perfecting this craft. So you have to have folks pour into you, but you also got to pour into yourself. Because the moment you talk, you are now putting yourself in a position to be judged, to be criticized, and you better make sure you're on your P's and Q's.
Yeah, I realized that. My father said something along the lines of, when you stand, your strengths and your weaknesses stand with you. And so a lot of what we don't do, and I'm guilty of this a lot, is not knowing what people are seeing, or even being aware of what people are hearing and how people are hearing it, because that is also a different perspective, and if we don't take the time, then we might be missing something. So what is it like to be self-aware? And that's a lot, but I want you to talk about that, because a lot of what you're doing requires you to have that type of awareness so that you can be effective.
Man, that's a process though, right? Like, self-awareness is something like, it's not a destination. Like, self-awareness is a journey. Like, there are times where, in the beginning of my career, I was aware that I didn't have the reach and the bandwidth. I didn't have the cachet or even the content to be able to really speak at the places and in the rooms that I wanted to speak at. I had to be self-aware of that, right? I had to realize that I wasn't dope enough yet. I was good, but I wasn't dope enough to be able to be on stages with celebrities and Grammy Award winners and, national poet laureates and all that. So I had to work on my craft. And then what happens is, a lot of folks, myself included, we're self-aware in one space and in one time, and then we almost freeze that image in our mind. And then we base the rest of what we do off of that self-awareness image. Well, that was who you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You have to be like, it's a journey. So you have to always take time to evaluate yourself, where you are. And that doesn't make you any more or less dope. It just means that maybe it's time to take your expertise, your game to the next level. right? And if you don't take time to really evaluate that, you'll start to ask yourself, why are people passing me up? Why am I not rocking these opportunities? Why am I not getting all these things? And sometimes it's because you haven't taken the time to make sure that you got to do a breath check, right?
Yeah.
Right? Does my breath stink? Like you got to check that, right? Because there may be something in you, or something that you are or not, or that you are not doing, that's holding you back from reaching your full potential.
I think what's interesting about what you said is that breath check is something that is so small and so what we would consider insignificant, but it is bountiful. And I learned that, and I'm still having to focus on things like that. Is that you get up there and you preach or teach, and you're exhausting every ounce of what you have for 20 or 30 minutes, and then right after that you're dry, and you need that net, and you need that gum. And sometimes it's the little things that can either build relationships, make another engagement, or can break those. So how did you learn about those smaller things that have maximum impact and reach?
I had no choice, man. Listen.
You get one opportunity.
Listen, man, folks be trying to get all deep about stuff, right? Like, folks be trying to, make things metaphysical and, man, I got to get this spiritual. Listen, you have to put in the work, right? Like, I'm not a preacher, but don't push me. But I do know that the Bible says that the work is plenty, but the laborers are few. And that's because folks are not willing to put in the work. They're not willing to put in the time. And I had to choose, was I going to continue to just look at the work and ask myself, why wasn't I getting it? Or was I going to put my hand to my plow, and was I going to start to till my soil so that I can start to reap and harvest from that hard work, right? I had to, it was a fight or flight for me, Johnny. Like, when you have to decide if you're going to win or if you're going to give up, you get to see what you're made of. And you have to either dig deep and continually dig deep, or you give up and you lose, and then losing becomes your habit, right? And I didn't want to make a habit of losing. I didn't want to make a habit of having that L, hung around my neck. I wanted to win as often as possible. And then I also realized, real talk, John, I realized that it wasn't about me. Like, I used to get up and tell people what I thought they needed to hear, what I thought they wanted to hear, or what I would have wanted to hear when I was in college or high school, but it wasn't about me. I had to realize that my message had to be all about them. And when I became a servant, like when I really said, I'm not a speaker, I'm not an entrepreneur, I am a servant of the people and the communities that I impact, that I touch, that they trust me with. I'm a servant to those people. That's when things started to change. I started to look at things differently. And then I started to allow my faith to be a part of my business as well. Like, I used to be real scared to talk about God or mention my faith. And then when I just said, dog, you can't be afraid of a huge part of who you are. So it was a must win. Like, I was in a fight or flight situation, and that's how I became aware of it. And then I just had to start building the habit of incorporating certain things, making sure that it was about serving, and that my faith was at the root of it all.
Who were the people that poured into your life? What were you able to capture from their pour? What lessons have you learned that have helped you walk into your destiny? What is it like being a talented and gifted person, but not polished enough to stand on the big stage? Join the discussion by using the hashtag JDO3podcast and use the hashtag chriscspeaks and contribute to this dialogue. Join us next week as we continue the discussion with Chris C. Speaks.